Part 29. Across the Heavens, Marvel's Mechanical Hunter. Author, De Chuanchi. Chapter 282. Oh, tell me. Yejuju perked up and communicated in his mind. Diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit. A strange man in full steel armor appeared outside the town, and 4 humans in strange clothes were speeding towards the town. The strange thing is that they all suddenly appeared around the town as if they fell from the sky. Well, it seems that Loki has taken action against his Thor brother. Yejuju muttered secretly, and then the system beep sounded. Congratulations to the host for triggering the world mission. Help Thor defeat the destroyer, help Thor truly understand and master Thor's power, and be rewarded with 10,000 experience points and Odin's favor. Hearing this, Yejuju became confused and didn't understand why the system gave a reward of Odin's favor. Will I have to deal with Odin in the future? However, on second thought, he threw this reward away and said to Tony, who was sweating and practicing his fighting moves hard. Tony, I received the news that there is some trouble at Thor's place. I want to go over and have a look. Do you want to go and have a look too? Of course. How can such a thing happen without me? Hey. Is it the so-called god you mentioned last time? Then I'm really interested to go and see it. After Tony finished speaking, he immediately stopped moving and rushed over in 3 or 2 steps. Yejuju also asked Zuifeng to stop teaching Xiao Ao, let Zuifeng return to him, and took Zuifeng into the space. Seeing Zuifeng disappear, Tony said with envy. I really envy your ability, yet. You can bring your favorite things with you anytime and anywhere. If I had this ability, I could eat delicious hamburgers anytime, anywhere. Puff. Yejuju almost spat out a mouthful of saliva, truly speechless at Tony's magical brain circuitry. Then, Tony said to Yejuju. Can you help me bring Xiao Ao here? Cannot. Hearing this, Yejuju immediately rejected Tony's request without thinking. Just kidding, how can anyone know the secret of the mechanical space? If you let little O in, you will know that Tony knows what secrets there are. Hearing this, Tony was not entangled, but just a little regretful. Why didn't he think of using an armed helicopter as the main body of the transformation when he chose the transformation vehicle? Sky watched the 2 people talking and wanted to step forward and join the conversation. However, he knew that his strength would not only not be able to help the 2 of them, but would even become a drag on them, and he couldn't help but become very disappointed. This scene happened to be seen by Yejuju, and he couldn't help but have an idea in his mind. Looking back on the show, Sky seemed to be transformed into Shockwave after being illuminated by an activated obelisk in the Forsaken Temple. Can I look for the mysterious obelisk and the abandoned temple in advance in my free time? In this case, wouldn't Sky be able to become his helper in advance? Just as he was thinking about it, he was urged by Tony. Hurry up, let's go now, lest we go late and miss a big battle. After speaking, Tony walked to a wall and said to the sky. Jarvis, send my armor below. Okay, sir. Not long after Jarvis's voice fell, the sound of flames erupted from the vents. Then, several pieces of red metal flew into the underground space, and the next second they all covered Tony's body with his hands open. When the last mask covered Tony's face, Yejuju couldn't help but feel excited. This is the Mark 6 that Tony first appeared in Avengers 1 and flew autonomously to find its owner. Unexpectedly, it appeared so soon. He actually didn't know that after the battle between the Hulk and the Abomination, Tony had actually started to develop the Mark 44 Hulkbuster armor for this big guy. Seeing that Tony was ready, Yejuju was not far behind. With a thought, the armor covered Yejuju's body in a cool way. Then, Tony's voice came from the armor. I am Iron Man. Let's go. As soon as the sound fell, Tony flew into the air, flying directly into the sky in the passage opened by Jarvis. Behind him, Yejuju followed closely. After the two met in the sky, they flew quickly towards the town of Pundi Antigo. Outside the town of Pundi Antigo, a man in steel armor who was originally only 88 meters tall suddenly transformed into a 1-meter tall giant after encountering Carlson and others blocking the road. The normally normal cheek area also turned red. Then, when Carlson and others hurriedly avoided, a hot light of destruction shot out from his cheeks, destroying the cars blocking him one by one. In the town at this time, Thor has gathered with his best friends in Asgard, the three warriors of Asgard, Volstagg, Hogun, Fandral, and his ex-girlfriend, the female warrior Sif. All five of them discovered the destroyer who appeared outside the town. I heard Sif say in surprise. Damn Loki, in order to deal with his own brother, he actually sent the destroyer down. Thor felt sad and said worriedly. I'm immortal now. If you stay, you might get killed. I don't want you to die because of me. You'd better leave. No, maybe we'll help you if we stay. Yes, we all have to stay. The three warriors said stubbornly. Hearing their words, Thor was very moved, but said, well, I hope you can help me send these ordinary people to a safe place first, and then we will find a way to deal with the destroyer. After that, the 5 people plus Jane's family began to evacuate the residents in the town. Outside the town, the destroyer had dispersed Carlson and other agents, and those who did not leave had been killed by the destroyer, and were walking towards the town with heavy steps. Thor stood solemnly on the road in front of the town, looking up at the destroyer who was striding forward, and a wave of sadness surged in his heart. For a moment, he thought of the scene of living with Loki since childhood, and he didn't understand why his brother became like this. Could it be? In his heart, is the throne more important than the relationship between brothers? Seeing that the destroyer was about to enter the town, the next moment Thor was about to be attacked by the destroyer. Suddenly, there was a sound of an object breaking through the air at high speed in the sky, and an extremely arrogant voice came. Hey, you big guy, this is the Earth, not a place where you can run wild. I am Iron Man. This was naturally said by Tony. Yejuju, who was flying beside him, curled his lips speechlessly and took the lead in attacking the destroyer on the ground. Suddenly, a longbow with an exaggerated shape appeared in his hand. The moment the bow was drawn, an almost transparent arrow appeared on the bowstring, and the next second it shot towards the top of the destroyer on the ground. Puff! The expected scene of penetrating the steel armor did not appear, but disappeared on the surface of the armor. Across the Heavens, Marvel's Mechanical Hunter. Author, Dachuan Chi. Chapter 283. The destroyer was attacked, looked up at the sky, and his cheeks turned red again. The next second, a thick stream of heat shot out from his cheeks and shot at Yejuju in the air. Yejuju activated the thrusters of his hands and feet, and dodged easily. Seeing that the energy arrows were ineffective against the destroyer, he immediately put away the red bow in his hand. He condensed an ice arrow and an ice cone in each hand, and shot at the destroyer with a shake of his hand. As usual, the destroyer did not dodge, and let the ice arrows and ice cones hit his body. As usual, he could not break through the defense, but unexpectedly a piece of white water vapor came out. Seeing this, Yejuju had a guess in his heart. It seems that when the destroyer activates the light of destruction, his own temperature will be very high. So, can this factor be used to completely destroy the destroyer? However, if the destroyer is completely destroyed, will the old man Odin come to trouble him? While thinking about all sorts of things in his mind, he also had an estimate of the combat power of the destroyer, and was even a little envious of Asgard's Uru metal. Speaking of Uru metal, its origin is extraordinary. It is the most magical and rare metal in Asgard. The reason why Thor's hammer and Odin's eternal spear are so powerful is that they are completely forged with Uru metal. And only the blacksmiths of the dwarves can forge complete Uru metal weapons. and weapons forged from complete URU metal are all artifacts without exception. Even if they are forged from a few URU metals and ordinary metals, they are rare weapons. Although the destroyer is not made entirely of URU metal, it is also mixed with a lot of it, so its hardness and magic conduction performance are unparalleled. This is also the reason why the destroyer's defense is so strong, and its energy attack is so powerful. Unfortunately, URU metal is not so easy to get, and Yejuju can't get it even if he wants it. The key is that he can't get to Asgard. Seeing that Yejuju's methods could not deal with the destroyer, Tony suddenly became energetic and could not wait to attack the destroyer. The Thor, the 3 warriors of the Heavenly Palace, and the 5 people of Sif on the ground, saw Yejuju and the 2 who suddenly appeared and joined forces to deal with the destroyer. They all felt differently. The 3 warriors of the Heavenly Palace and Sif had an expression as if they had seen a ghost, a little overwhelmed, and a little unreal. That's the destroyer, right? Odin had worn this armor to defeat countless powerful enemies, and it was also the guardian of Odin's treasure house. How could it be stopped by 2 humans who were obviously native to Midgard? Could it be that after not being here for so many years, the humans here have already possessed the power comparable to that of gods? Thor's feelings were even deeper. He had seen Yejuju last time, although he cowardly ran away that time. Originally, he thought that this human had died in the hands of the 3 ice giants, but he didn't expect that he was actually alive and well. This time, the destroyer appeared, and this human came again. Twice. This human came to save him twice. How could Thor, who claimed to be the strongest fighting god in Asgard, feel so embarrassed? Tony's attack methods naturally could not hurt the destroyer. Whether it was his small missiles, the impact beams in his palms, or the electromagnetic pulses on his chest, they could not hurt the destroyer. But he made the destroyer angry. The angry destroyer shrank back to his normal size of 88 and flew into the air the next moment. While emitting the light of destruction from his face to attack Tony, he chased Tony in the air, obviously wanting to catch Tony and tear him into pieces with his armor. Seeing that Tony temporarily entangled the destroyer, Yejuju fell from the air to the ground and walked towards the confused Thor 5. Seeing Yejuju coming, the 3 warriors of Tiangong and Sif subconsciously surrounded him and separated Yejuju from Thor. Yejuju shrugged, stood there and said to Thor, "Thor, is this how you treat your savior?" "What?" The 3 warriors of the Heavenly Palace and Sif were all stunned, and then exclaimed. Thor's face was also embarrassed, but he said very openly that, what he said is true. The last time I was chased by the ice giant, it was he who saved me. Well, not bad, I thought you would deny it. Yejuju nodded with satisfaction and continued. I admire you a little, the Thor who came to the Heavenly Palace. You know me? Thor asked in surprise, but the next second he became lost and said with his head down. No. I am no longer the Thor. My power has been taken away by my father. I can no longer hold my Mjolnir. Thor. The 3 warriors of the Heavenly Palace and Sif couldn't bear to see Thor's decadent look, and shouted in unison, but they didn't know how to persuade him. Yejuju walked around the 4 people in front of him, walked to the front of Thor, and said slowly. If you can't lift Mjolnir, you are not Thor. Hearing this, Thor raised his head suddenly, stared at Yejuju with wide eyes, with a look of isn't it, in his eyes. Yejuju shrugged and continued. Your power comes from thunder and lightning. Is it really that important to have a hammer? No, you don't understand. My power can only be controlled with the help of Mjolnir. I can't. No, you can. Yejuju said firmly. We humans have a saying, any tool is an auxiliary means, only your own strength is the most powerful. Your body contains powerful lightning elements, but you never know how to use them. Really? Thor looked at Yejuju with hope on his face. From his slightly trembling hands, Yejuju could see that Thor had believed what he said. So he continued. Yes, you should know that from ancient times to the present, there are many people who can control lightning elements, right? But you are the only one who can be called Thor, that is naturally because of your specialness. The lightning elements in your body are your most powerful power. Come on. Let go of your mind, feel the lightning elements in your body, try to control them, let them communicate with the lightning in the sky, let them resonate, and control them. Yeah. Thor hesitated for a moment and agreed. Then he opened his hands, raised his head and closed his eyes, and carefully felt the lightning elements in his body. In a moment, there were subtle electric sparks on his body, which flashed and extinguished. After a while, the electric sparks flickered and extinguished again. Although it took a long time, it had already excited the 3 Tiangong warriors and Sif. The 4 of them looked at Yejuju with gratitude, and then looked at Thor, looking forward to Thor's real mastery of the power of thunder and lightning. Become the real Thor. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Across the Heavens, Marvel's Mechanical Hunter. Author, Dachuan. Chapter 284. Popular recommendations. In the sky, Tony was already being chased by the destroyer in an extremely embarrassing manner. He had to escape the destroyer's pursuit several times after narrowly escaping. When he took the time to see Yejuju on the ground, he seemed to be chatting with that god of thunder, and Tony suddenly felt unbalanced. What about fighting together? You actually left me to chat with others, am I still your friend and brother? The energy of the thruster burst out again, and after escaping the devastating attack, he shouted to the ground. Yeah, if I remember correctly, you are going to deal with this difficult guy with me. Why are you chatting on the ground? Hearing this, the corners of Yejuju's mouth curled up slightly behind his visor, and he felt a little bit happy in his heart, and he said in a confused voice. Make you a poisonous snake, make you arrogant and arrogant. Do you think that with a steel armor, you will be invincible? Now you know your own shortcomings. Of course, I think so. Naturally, Yejuju would not let Tony get hurt in the hands of the destroyer. He activated the thrusters on his hands and soles at the same time, and his body rose into the sky with a whoosh sound. Yejuju was flying in the air, and a cold ice knife appeared in each of his hands. He unceremoniously attacked the destroyer from behind, but he didn't expect that the destroyer's reaction speed was extremely fast. He turned around and kicked Yejuju in the chest and abdomen. He didn't expect that the destroyer would move so fast. In a hurry, Yejuju could only cross his swords in front of his chest and caught the kick with a peng sound. The force of this kick was so great that Yejuju was knocked back more than 10 meters by this kick. The ice blade in his hand broke into pieces and fell to the ground. After a quick glance, he saw a pair of ice knives with only one handle left. Yejuju was horrified and couldn't help but face the destroyer's combat power again. You know, since Yejuju took control of the power of ice, this was the first time that the ice blade in his hand was shattered by his opponent. After thinking about it in his mind, Yejuju condensed the ice blade again, and this time he had an idea and boldly tried it. Putting the ice blades in his hands together, in a flash of thought, the 2 ice blades merged into a 3-meter-long knife. Speaking of which, this was the inspiration brought to him by the pressure of the destroyer. Think about it, in fantasy fairy novels, many weapons can be combined together. Since his ice blade is somewhere between magic and energy, will it be improved if they are fused together? The synthetic ice blade is much thicker than the original ice blade, and the cold air emanating from the blade is a bit colder, and it even gives off a faint sheen that only metal can have. Ah! Yejuju, who was extremely satisfied with the new weapon, shouted, his thrusters exploded, and he rushed towards the destroyer. His movements were as fast as lightning, but he was very careful. On the ground, some electric sparks on Thor's body no longer disappeared, swimming like a small snake on his body. It seems that Thor has begun to gradually control the thunder and lightning elements in his body. The three Tiangong warriors and Sif looked at Thor without blinking, and had long since stopped paying attention to the battle in the sky. In the sky, Yejuju had already rushed in front of the destroyer, and with a powerful and heavy move Li Pai Huashan, the 3-meter-long blade drew a line of light and shadow in the air, and slashed hard towards the destroyer's head. With a clang sound, the ice blade and the destroyer's hands crossed above his head collided, making a sound unique to metal. Yejuju was secretly proud. He didn't expect that the ice blade he had fused with his brain had such power. It no longer belonged to the metal of the destroyer. See how you can shatter my weapon. Yejuju thought with pride. Yes. He has reason to be proud. Although the blade of the unjoined ice blade is made of ice, its properties are comparable to 10,000 years of ice, and its hardness has long been beyond that of any ordinary metal. Then, it makes sense that the two ice blades combined are not weaker than the destroyer. The sword was blocked. Yejuju unceremoniously somersaulted 360 degrees in the air, and kicked the destroyer hard on the chest. With a peng sound, the destroyer's body was kicked away. The body turned several times in the air and stopped in Kankan. The moment it stopped, the destroyer's face flashed red, and then a beam of destruction shot in front of Yejuju. Yejuju cursed in his heart, and hurriedly started the thruster to dodge the light of destruction. He was still a little afraid that the destroyer's reaction speed was too fast, and it did not belong to any fighting master. At this moment, Tony, who was hovering in the air, was conflicted in his heart. He looked at Yejuju and the destroyer fighting unwillingly. He wanted to step forward but was afraid of dragging Yejuju back. This feeling was so bad that Tony's face was so dark behind the visor that it was almost dripping with water. He secretly vowed to develop a more powerful armor so as not to become a bystander again in the future. Little did he know that his unwillingness was the reason why he kept seeking death. Even after Yejuju reminded him repeatedly, he still got the Mind Stone later. He was arrogant and believed that with his ability, he could control any situation, and created Ultron regardless of the consequences. Of course, this is all an afterthought. Let's talk about Yejuju here. Yejuju and the destroyer have rushed together and started fighting at close range. This really opened Tony's eyes again. It was really a wonderful fight between this man and this mecha. Although the destroyer was just a piece of armor, it had been controlled by Odin's divine sense for so many years. It had experienced countless battles, big and small, and its combat experience was naturally quite rich. When facing the fighting skills of Yejuju, an intermediate combat master, although he could not hit Yejuju, he was also on par with Yejuju. From time to time, he would force Yejuju to dodge constantly. Look at Yejuju again. Tony always knew that Yejuju was very good at fighting, but he didn't expect him to be so good. Those difficult moves that he had never thought of were so easy and simple when performed by Yejuju. The destroyer could never touch Yejuju. The heavy blows from the air from time to time finally woke up the 3 Tiangong warriors and the 4 people of Sif on the ground. The 4 of them finally managed to take their eyes off Thor and saw Yejuju fighting with the destroyer. The 4 of them couldn't help but take a deep breath, which was too shocking. No one knew the power of the destroyer better than the 4 of them. After all, when they grew up and participated in the battle, Odin had rarely had the opportunity to attack. But they still saw Odin use his divine sense to control the destroyer to attack, and killed the powerful enemy in a few strokes. The 4 of them naturally knew how powerful the destroyer was. But even such a powerful destroyer was chopped by the strange long sword that Yejuju held in both hands. Across the Heavens, Marvel's Mechanical Hunter. Author, De Chuanqi. Chapter 285. Yes. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. In their opinion, the destroyer was killed by Yejuju unilaterally. Because the destroyer never hit Yejuju once. Whether it was his fists or kicks or the sneak attack of the Light of Destruction, Yejuju easily dodged it. He could also take advantage of the destroyer's opportunity to slash back with the strange long knife in his hand. The four of them even had a feeling. If the destroyer hadn't contained URU metal in his body, he would have been destroyed by Yejuju. But in fact this is not the case. The reason why Yejuju was able to beat the destroyer unilaterally without being attacked by the destroyer. First, he was afraid that he would not be able to withstand the destroyer's fists and kicks and the attack intensity of the destroyer's light, so he naturally had to be extremely careful. Secondly, his spirit is high enough and he has the ability to sense danger, so he can predict the destroyer's attack in advance and dodge it. On the distant Asgard, Loki stood on a high platform holding Odin's eternal spear, observing the battle between the destroyer and Yejuju on the earth through magic. His face was gloomy and scary, not even the scary look he had when he used freezing magic to freeze Heimdall. His teeth were itching with hatred and he cursed secretly. "It's this damn human again. Why do you have to go against me and ruin my plans again and again? Why do you want to help Thor, that stupid big guy who only has muscles and no brain?" Thinking of this, Loki couldn't help but tighten his hands so hard that the eternal spear in his hands creaked, and finally muttered bitterly. "If I hadn't already been the king of Asgard and couldn't leave Asgard easily. Diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit. I really want to go down to that damn Midgard again and pierce your heart with the eternal spear in my hand, hum." In fact, what he said was just to show off his rhetoric. He really didn't have the confidence to kill Yejuju. Even if he is holding the Spear of Eternity now. After all, only in the hands of Odin can the Spear of Eternity exert its true power. And it's just a show of holding it. Outside the town of Pondion Antigo on Earth, Yejuju was still fighting the destroyer in mid-air. As for such a boring battle, the Tiangong 3 warriors and Sif on the ground had lost interest in watching, and turned to look at Thor, whose eyes were still closed. Yes, it's that boring. As if forging iron, Yejuju avoided the destroyer's attacks while slashing at the destroyer with his long knife, but was unable to break through the defense every time. In fact, this is just an outsider's view, and only Yejuju can see it up close. Every time he hit the destroyer with his ice blade, a thin layer of frost would briefly appear on the hit area, but it would disappear quickly. Diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit. Despite this, Yejuju was still keenly aware that where the hoarfrost disappears, there will always be a shallow and almost invisible trace left. And if this mark gradually deepens, will it break through the destroyer's steel armor? He thought well, and it was indeed the case. The destroyer was hit by the ice blade. It seemed like nothing, but in fact it was slightly damaged. If Yejuju can continuously hit one position, if things go on like this, he will definitely break through the armor on the destroyer. And if Yejuju can continuously chop the destroyer's head, he can really kill the destroyer in a short time. Because the destroyer's strongest point is his faceless head, and this is also his weak point. Didn't you see that in the show? The god of thunder who was killed by the destroyer awakened his power as the god of thunder, summoned Mjolnir, and then blew off the destroyer's head with a hammer? This can be regarded as a hidden danger left by Odin's divine consciousness controlling the destroyer. This is the so-called polarization theory of the strongest is also the weakest. At this time, the thunder god's electric sparks had gathered more and more, and his whole body seemed to be blue. In the sky above his head, there were also thick clouds gathering faintly, gradually forming a huge tornado cloud above his head. Then, the strong wind gathered above his head, blowing so hard that the eyes of the people on the ground could not open. Then, Thor opened his arms and shouted loudly, "Mjolnir!" Thor's eyes also opened as he shouted. At this time, his eyes were no longer the color of a normal human being, but turned into two dazzling light groups, and electric sparks could be faintly seen flickering in the light groups. Jane and Eric, who were hiding in the distance, were looking at Thor dumbfounded, with disbelief and surprise in their eyes. Yejuju naturally heard Thor's shout, and couldn't help but feel happy. Of course he has reasons to be happy. Don't forget that one of his tasks is to help Thor and awaken the true power of Thor. As for killing the destroyer, is there any difference whether he killed it by himself or by Thor? What's more, this is the highlight moment for Thor to return to the altar. How can he have the nerve to steal Thor's limelight? Sure enough, following Thor's shout, he was far away in the hammer area blocked by shield in the suburbs. Mjolnir suddenly trembled violently, and powerful energy suddenly emanated from the hammer. Before the scientists who were guarding here could react to what was happening, Mjolnir flew up with a buzz. Then, Mjolnir broke through the roof and flew high into the sky. At this time, Odin, who was sleeping in Asgard, left 2 lines of crystal tears in his closed eyes. Loki, who was walking back to the throne, also turned around suddenly and looked in shock in the direction of the Rainbow Bridge. Mjolnir dragged along white smoke and flew rapidly towards Thor. Finally, Mjolnir fell into Thor's hands with a choke sound and began to tremble with a buzz. It seemed to be cheering that it had returned to the hands of its master, Thor, the god of thunder. Tony raised Mjolnir high up, and the next moment, countless lightning flashed out with Mjolnir as the center, forming a dazzling white light ball that enveloped the standing Thor. In the light ball, pieces of metal fragments inexplicably emerged, starting from Thor's raised right arm and tightly attached to Thor's body. Soon, a set of black armor with the same shining color as the destroyer was formed on Thor's body. The destroyer in the sky also gave up attacking Yejuju at this time. After falling from the air to the ground, his body expanded rapidly. In the blink of an eye, he turned into a 9.1 meter tall giant. Then, the destroyer's face turned red again, and he saw a ray of destruction about to shoot out of his face and bombard Thor. From the white light ball, a hammer flew straight out, and hit the destroyer's face heavily with a dang sound. Across the heavens, Marvel's Mechanical Hunter. Author, Dachuan Chi. Chapter 286. The huge force shook his head and staggered his body, and the light of the destroyer that was about to be launched was extinguished. Yejuju, who was hovering in the sky, had no intention of going down to help, and watched the show with great anticipation. After all, he really wanted to see how powerful the God of Thunder would be after awakening the true power of the God of Thunder. In fact, Thor did not let down Yejuju's hard work. Mjolnir, which hit the destroyer, flew back to Thor's hand, and the lightning disappeared, revealing Thor, the God of Thunder, now wearing bright armor and a red cloak behind him. The next second, Thor jumped up high with Mjolnir in hand, and fell towards the destroyer who was positioning his body to continue attacking. Dang, there was another hammer. Mjolnir hit the destroyer's head hard. This time, the power was far greater than before, slamming the destroyer to the ground. Thor also fell on the destroyer's back, shouting "Yeah!" Mjolnir quickly spun in his hands, and lightning flashed again. Then Thor hit the destroyer on the back of the head with another heavy hammer. In the sound of crack, clatter, the destroyer's head cracked, and his body collapsed to the ground and stopped moving. It's so easy. Yejuju couldn't help but think. Thor in the original show flew into the tornado clouds, gathered a lot of energy, and killed the destroyer with one blow. But what about now? Thor actually killed the destroyer so easily. Can you say that you have been of great help to Thor, Odin, and Asgard? Then, Yejuju also received a prompt from the system. Congratulations to the host for completing the world mission. Help Thor defeat the destroyer, help Thor truly understand Thor's power, and be rewarded with 10,000 experience points and Odin's favor. Tips: the host level increases, the current level is 28, strength and stamina increase by 5 each. Intelligence, spirit, and agility each increase by 1 and have been automatically assigned to the attribute panel. Please check the details by the host. There was no time to rejoice in completing the system task and improving the level. Yejuju looked at the motionless corpse of the destroyer on the ground, which had returned to 88 meters. My heart suddenly became eager to move. An uncontrollable thought came to my mind. I want to get the body of the destroyer, and I want to extract URU metal. I want to integrate URU metal into my armor. As soon as this idea came up, Yejuju jumped up and landed in front of Thor without hesitation. Hearing the noise around him, Thor raised his head and looked at Yejuju with complicated eyes, and then said after a while, "Hello, thank you very much for helping me, I am Thor. You gain the friendship of Asgard and me." "Oh, hello, Thor. It's a pleasure to gain your friendship with Asgard." Yejuju shrugged and pretended to be relaxed. But he was thinking about how to get the body of the destroyer from Thor's hands. After thinking about it, Yejuju decided to tell him something about what happened after he returned to Asgard, so as to further gain the gratitude of the god of thunder and have a reason to get the body of the destroyer. Thinking of this, Yejuju took back his armor and revealed his true appearance. This moment immediately shocked Thor, the three Tiangong warriors, Sif, and even Jane and Dr. Eric who ran here afterwards. Thinking about it, this person who can fight the destroyer should at least be an adult. Who would have thought that it would be a boy who looked only 16 years old? This is so unbelievable. Before everyone could finish being shocked, Yejuju said something that shocked Thor and his four friends even more. "Actually, there is a reason why you were targeted by your brother, and your father was even poisoned by Loki." "What?" Sure enough, before Yejuju finished speaking, he was interrupted by several people exclaiming at the same time. Ignoring everyone's exclamations, Yejuju continued. "Only your father and your mother, and a few others, know about Loki's life experience. In fact, Loki is not the child of your father and your mother, but the mutated son of Farbeauty and Laufey. By chance, he was adopted by your father. It was also because he knew this that he poisoned your father and tried so hard to kill you. If nothing unexpected happens." "Wait, why don't I know what you said?" Before Yejuju could continue, he was interrupted by the excited Thor. "How could you possibly know such a thing? Your father and mother originally hoped to adopt Loki and let him follow the right path. If you want to know the specific reason, you can return to Asgard, rescue your father and mother, and then ask them. Also, even though you are a god, you can't interrupt others rudely. Mortal, please watch your words, you must know that you are facing the god of thunder. Thor. The future king of Asgard, do you know?" Before Thor could speak, he was questioned by the three grumpy Tiangong warriors in unison. Ignoring the three Tiangong warriors, and just when Yejuju was about to continue speaking, Tony also fell from the air to the ground, walked up to Yejuju, glared at the Tiangong three warriors fiercely, and took a fighting stance. Seeing this, Yejuju was very moved. He stretched out his hand to pull Tony to signal him to relax, and then continued. "You should listen carefully to what I say next. Do you know that this is related to the safety of your Asgard?" After speaking, Yejuju glared at the three Tiangong warriors and said. "If nothing else, Loki has already contacted Laufey. When you returned to the altar and wanted to return to Asgard, he had already brought the ice giant into Asgard. If you don't go back soon, I guess Asgard will no longer be the territory of your gods, but the territory of the ice giants. Are you telling the truth?" Thor, the three Tiangong warriors, and Sif asked in shock at the same time. After finishing his words, Thor turned around, glanced apologetically at Jane, who had just rushed in front of him, and became cautious again, and said. "Jane, I originally wanted to have a nice talk with you. You know, Asgard is my hometown, I have to rush back first." Before he could finish his words, Jane stepped forward, reached out and covered Thor's mouth and said excitedly. "No, you don't need to explain anything to me. I just know you are the god of thunder. You go back to save your country first." After saying that, Jane stared at Thor with bright eyes and added, "This armor is so handsome." As soon as he finished speaking, a motorcade drove up in the distance. The door opened and Coulson stepped out of the car, shouting from a distance, "Feel sorry." Everyone turned around to see Thor walking towards Coulson, who was walking towards him. Coulson walked into Thor and said, "Donald, you're not telling me the truth. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." Across the Heavens, Marvel's Mechanical Hunter. Author, Dachuan. Chapter 287. Hot recommendation. Thor said seriously, "Do you know the son of Kull? We are fighting for the same goal, to protect this world. From today on, as long as you return Jane's things, I will treat me as your ally and can come here to help you at any time." Yejuju was not interested in listening to their topic, and stared at the body of the destroyer on the ground with burning eyes. Thinking that Thor and the others had better leave quickly, they could put the body of the destroyer into the space. Who knew that Thor, who was still thinking about Asgard before, actually chatted with Coulson in order to please Jane. Tony and Yejuju have been together for so long, so he naturally saw Yejuju's little thoughts and encouraged. "If you want it, just put it away." Hearing this, Yejuju couldn't help but move in his heart, thinking, "Yes. Sooner or later, I will offend Odin anyway, so why should I be afraid of offending Thor?" Thinking of this, Yejuju bent down and stretched out his hand to press on the body of the destroyer. When he was about to collect the body of the destroyer with his mind, a voice that only he could hear, which was obviously an old man's, sounded in his ears. "You want the destroyer? I think it won't help you if you get it." Hearing this, Yejuju's heart suddenly became alert and asked with his mind, "Who are you? Are you Odin?" Yejuju also reacted. The one who could talk to his mind was such an old existence. Who else could it be but Odin? "You are good. You can guess who I am so quickly, and you know so many secrets that even my son doesn't know. However, you don't have to worry that I will do you any harm. I even want to ask you to help me protect my stupid son when I really die. Don't worry, I will pay enough to thank you." This time, Yejuju was no longer surprised, but he had a clearer understanding of the Protoss. The Protoss is worthy of being the Protoss. Odin is worthy of being Odin. This manipulation of divine consciousness is not something that any god can accomplish simply. In fact, he thought too much. Although Odin is the king of gods, he is not as powerful as Yejuju imagined. The reason why Odin can communicate with Yejuju using divine consciousness is because of the existence of the destroyer as a medium. Otherwise, how could Odin project his divine consciousness to the earth that is so far away? As for why the destroyer can bring Odin's divine consciousness to such a distant earth, this is not so easy to understand. Although Odin was poisoned and unconscious, his divine consciousness can still be attached to the destroyer. Otherwise, how did the destroyer start? This can be regarded as the two complementing each other. And the reason why he did not stop Loki from stealing the destroyer, but attached his divine consciousness to it, and even beat his son. Isn't it because he wants to motivate his son through this, so that his son can return to the altar again, so that he can inherit his control of Asgard and the entire 9 realms in the future? Diamond suit, diamond suit, diamond suit. But he didn't expect to meet Yejuju here. This was really a pleasant surprise for him. After fighting with Yejuju for so long, although Yejuju didn't defeat the destroyer, he saw Yejuju's potential. Because Yejuju not only has powerful technology, but also has obvious ice magic energy, and even a kind of energy that makes him feel scared. So, since this human boy is so powerful now, if he is given time, when he really grows up, he may become an existence that surpasses himself. It is understandable that he wants him to help his son. What he doesn't know is that the reason why he has these feelings is completely the system's trick. Odin's favor. This reward from the system. It is precisely because of the power of the system that Odin feels scared of the vague energy. Just think about it. A god king inexplicably develops a good impression of a human. What a terrifying thing this is. An old monster who has lived for almost 5,000 years will not easily develop a good impression of the gods, let alone a human? And he just happened to have it. This is such a terrifying thing for God. Originally, he wanted to pay more attention to Yejuju in secret, but Yejuju stole the corpse of the destroyer, and immediately let his consciousness attach to the destroyer. Odin could no longer sit still, so he used his consciousness to communicate with Yejuju. Reward. Yejuju's heart was moved. He really wanted the treasures in Odin's treasury. Apart from other things, in Odin's treasury. The sphere of Egmodo, which can detect dangers and sources of magic in the universe in advance. The artifact obtained from the fire giant Surtur, the eternal fire. The life card that can make any creature evolve into the highest level of life, with infinite wisdom and super combat power. And the ice box that he has already obtained, which can freeze a world. Even the infinite gloves that can destroy half of the life in the universe with a snap of the fingers. The warlock's eye that can dispel all illusions and false darkness. These are all things that Yejuju covets. Unfortunately, he also knows. Each of these things is a treasure coveted by any race and any life, and none of them can be obtained from Odin at present. Just think about it. Rather than arguing with Odin and returning empty-handed, it is more important to ask for something practical. For example, ask for more URU metal. After thinking it over, Yejuju said to Odin in his mind. I just want some URU metal, this request is easy to do. Oh, is that all you want? You can ask for more. Yejuju curled his lips and said in his mind. That's it? You can't bear to give up the others, right? Lord God King. Haha. You are very sensible young man. I will let Heimdall pick you up later, and I will satisfy you. Oh, remember, don't think about my armor again. Otherwise, I will be angry, understand? After Odin finished speaking, there was silence. At the same time, the system sounded again. Congratulations to the host for triggering Odin's favorability follow-up task. Go to Asgard and help the Protoss defeat the Ice Clan, and you will be rewarded with 10,000 experience points and an upgrade of the Falcon armor once. The system's prompts diluted Yejuju's disappointment for not getting the destroyer. He looked at the corpse of the destroyer on the ground unwillingly, sighed and stood up. Tony looked at Yejuju in confusion and asked. Why didn't you take it? Tisk, it's just a broken set of armor, I don't even like it. Yejuju said hypocritically. At this moment, Thor finally finished communicating with Carlson. The three warriors of Tiangong and Sif also came forward, carried the destroyer on the ground, and ran to the suburbs without paying any attention to Yejuju. Obviously, these three people have not forgiven Yejuju for his disrespect to Thor. Thor came forward and said to Yejuju seriously. Thank you very much for the news you gave me. I have to go back first and see you again when there is a chance. Friend. Across the Heavens, Marvel's Mechanical Hunter. Author, Dachuan-Chi. Chapter 288. Popular recommendations. With that said, Thor stretched out his hand to shake Yejuju's hand. Yejuju stretched out his hand and shook Tony's hand and said. Okay, see you later, Thor. My name is Yejuju, you can call me Yet. But he added in his mind. We'll see you soon. After saying that, the two men let go of their hands. Thor whipped Mjolnir and flew out of the town. Looking at the people leaving, Coulson stepped forward, looked at Yejuju and Tony and said. Yeah, I really don't know what to say. But I have to ask. How come you are here? Yejuju shrugged and said. As Thor said, our purpose is the same, to maintain the peace of this world. You can also think that I am a volunteer firefighter, and I will appear wherever there is danger." After saying that, Yejuju thought, his armor quickly attached to his body, and he flew into the sky. Looking at Yejuju flying away, Coulson's expression turned ugly. He really wanted to arrest Yejuju for being so disrespectful. Unfortunately, this was just a thought, and in the end I gritted my teeth and gave up the idea. Because only he and Fury know that there are not only criminals and KB elements in this world, but also existences that are even more KB than them. This was true for the Kree and Skrulls back then, and so is the Big Steel guy today. And only people with special abilities like Yejuju and others can deal with these things. Fury also said sincerely, "As long as Ye doesn't do anything that endangers the world, it would be best to give him some leniency and try to win Ye to join the future Avengers." Thinking of this, Coulson's expression gradually calmed down. Tony stayed at the end, saw Coulson's changing expression, and said, "You should not regard Ye as an enemy. On the contrary, he is protecting us all and the world." After saying that, Tony also stood up and flew high into the sky. Originally, he thought that the matter here was settled and Ye had returned to Stark Tower, but he did not expect that Yejuju did not go back at all, but went to the Rainbow Bridge connecting Asgard to the Earth. As soon as Yejuju arrived, he saw Thor, the three Tiangong warriors, and Sif disappearing into the sky with the destroyer in the pillar of light. Then, he heard Heimdall's voice in his mind. "Hello Midgardians, please climb to the location of the Rainbow Bridge and follow the instructions of my great god King Odin. I will bring you to Asgard." Yejuju said nothing and stepped into the circular pattern on the ground. The next moment, the light beam came again, pulling Yejuju's body to fly into the sky. In the beam of light, Yejuju felt very bad. There is no comfort at all from system transmission. This feeling of forcibly pulling oneself up into the sky is really terrible. Even with Yejuju's strong physical fitness, he still felt a little nauseous. During the transmission, Yejuju was even thinking. When Thor brought Jane to Asgard, luckily Jane was unconscious, otherwise Jane would have vomited. But he didn't know that Heimdall was deliberately trying to embarrass him. Others just felt a little dizzy when teleported, but he suffered a little. This is also Yejuju's own fault. Who told him not to respect Asgard so much? When the light beam stopped, Yejuju had appeared on a colorful bridge. Not far away from him, Thor, the three Tiangong warriors and Sif were turning back to look at him in surprise. Yejuju shrugged, took back his armor as he walked, and said, "I said that I was invited by your father and Heimdall picked me up personally. Do you believe it?" Before Thor could speak, Volstagg, the most fiery-tempered bearded one among the three warriors of Tiangong, shouted at Yejuju. "You're lying. How could you, a mortal, get a personal invitation from our great God King? Besides, our God King is still here." Before she could finish her words, Sif shouted sternly, "Vorstag, shut up." Vestag suddenly woke up after being shouted at. He knew that he had said the wrong thing and immediately kept silent. He just looked at Yejuju with an evil look in his eyes. It was Lei Shen who knew the importance, and he also knew that Yejuju didn't lie. Only if Yejuju is invited by his father, Heimdall will send Yejuju to Asgard. Otherwise, no matter how powerful Yejuju is, he would not be able to travel through countless light years to get here. Fortunately, Thor has a good impression of Yejuju, not only because Yejuju saved him twice indirectly or directly. It was even more because of Yejuju's help and reminder that he understood his father's painstaking efforts. Not only did he regain the power of the God of Thunder, he also gained strength far beyond what he had been before. Holding Mjolnir in one hand, Thor walked towards Yejuju, stretched out his hand again and said, "Welcome to my hometown as a guest, Ye." Yejuju stretched out his hand to shake Thor's hand, and said with a playful smile on his face, I think the most important thing you should do at this time is to return to Asgard and fight. Because, if nothing else, Loki's helpers, the ice giants, have already entered your kingdom? Yes. Thor reacted later, and without bothering to greet Yejuju, he immediately swung Mjolnir in his hand, and his body was carried by the hammer to fly towards the castle. Then, the three warriors of Tiangong and Sif also ran forward, closely chasing behind Thor. Yejuju walked forward slowly, and as for the task of helping the gods to defeat the ice giants, he was not in a hurry at all. Aren't they just a few ice giants? Not to mention that Thor can handle it alone, even Loki would not let the ice giants kill Odin. Why do I need to take action? When Thor flew back to the castle first, he saw many ice giants fighting with the gods guarding the castle. Without hesitation, Thor joined the battle. Thor's return made the gods who were struggling to fight the ice giants cheer. Before Thor landed, he shook his hand and threw Mjolnir in his hand, knocking down an ice giant. He landed on the ground with a beautiful somersault, and did not forget to step on an ice giant. Just as he was about to continue killing the ice giant, the castle soldiers shouted to Thor. "Thor, we can handle it here, you go to your father's bedroom quickly, there is only your mother guarding the God King." Hearing this, Thor did not dare to delay, stretched out his hand to hold Mjolnir that flew back to his hand, swung the hammer with his mind, and said anxiously, "Okay, this is left to you, the three warriors of the heavenly palace and Sif are coming." While speaking, Thor had already flown up and flew towards the tallest building in the middle of the castle. As soon as Yejuju walked across the rainbow bridge, he saw many ice giants attacking the castle of Asgard. Across the Heavens, Marvel's Mechanical Hunter. Author, Dachuanchi. Chapter 289. Popular recommendations. This was beyond Yejuju's expectation. He originally thought that even if Loki brought the ice giants into Asgard, they would be just a few ice giants. But who would have thought that Loki would be so decisive and bring so many ice giants to attack Asgard? This made him confused about what Loki was doing. But he didn't know that it was precisely because of his repeated interference that Loki was so angry that he finally changed his plan and brought more ice giants to attack Asgard. He wanted Asgard to fall into greater danger, and then he would finally save Asgard, letting everyone see that he was stronger than Thor and more suitable to inherit the throne of Asgard. At this time, just as he had originally planned, he guided two ice giants to enter Odin's sleeping palace. When her mother killed an ice giant and was beaten to the ground, he couldn't help but take action and kill another ice giant. Needless to say, although Loki was dissatisfied with Odin and looked down on the muscular brother, he respected and cared for this gentle woman. Frigga got up from the ground, hurriedly ran to Loki, held Loki's hands excitedly and said, "Loki, it's great that you're here, otherwise your father would be in danger." Although Loki was a little disappointed that his plan had gone a little awry, he still held Frigga's arms and said, "Mom, don't worry, I won't let anyone hurt my father." At this moment, Thor flew to the balcony and said rudely, "Loki, you don't want to hurt father and mother, why do you bring so many ice giants to attack here?" Hearing this, Loki turned around, glared at Thor bitterly and said, "What do you know? I brought so many ice giants here to take this opportunity to weaken most of the ice giants' power, so that we can finally attack the Jotun giant kingdom and destroy this Scatter's biggest enemy." Seeing that Thor was back safely, Frigga excitedly let go of Loki, ran to Thor's side and hugged him. Thor comforted his mother while hugging her. "Mom, don't worry, I'm back." After saying that, he looked at Loki and asked, "Loki, why are you doing this? Did you know? That is a race and a country. You cannot easily decide whether they will perish with just one word." "Haha. What did I hear?" Loki laughed exaggeratedly and said, "In the past, our most skilled and brave god of war actually considered the life and death of other races. Tell me, What exactly did you go through? Does it make you cowardly? I experienced my mistakes and regained them, and I gained strength far beyond what I had before. I even felt the difficulty of peace in Midgard and realized my mistakes in the past. So, my brother, you are wrong, you shouldn't do this. I still want to ask you, why do you do this? You ask me. Haha, you actually ask me. Loki was laughing wildly, his eyes were already moist, and he stared at Thor and said, I just want to prove to my father that I am his most outstanding son. Frigga on the side couldn't stand it anymore, raised his head from Thor's arms and said, Loki, you are wrong, your father cares about you very much. No, mother, no. Loki shed tears, looked at Frigga and shook his head and said, If you care about me, why don't you pass the throne to me? In what way am I inferior to Thor? Thor said in a deep voice. If you want this throne so much, you can tell us and I will give the throne to you, my brother. No, I don't need your permission. Do you think I really want to be a god king? Loki was so excited that he shouted almost hysterically. I don't care about the throne at all. What I care about is my father's approval, you know. After speaking, Loki jumped from the balcony and left the castle, leaving a sentence in the air. I won't tell you, I want to prove to my father that I will destroy the entire Jotun giant kingdom. Thor was shocked when he heard this, and hurriedly released Frigga and said, Mother, keep an eye on father, I'm going to stop him. After saying that, Thor swung his hammer and flew down the balcony to chase Loki. And Loki happened to land at the head of the rainbow, and what he saw was Yejuju, who was standing at the head of the rainbow bridge watching the battle. As soon as he saw Loki, Yejuju immediately controlled the armor to attach to his body with his mind and looked at Loki warily. Loki looked at Yejuju in surprise, and the anger in his heart rose fiercely. He aimed the tip of the eternal gun at Yejuju and said, Haha, you came just in time, I'm going to kill you, a despicable mortal. After speaking, Loki controlled the eternal spear and shot an energy beam towards Yejuju. Yejuju reacted very quickly, transformed his hands into ice skates, and crossed them in front of him. Amidst the sound of clang, clatter, although the beam attack was blocked, the two swords in his hands were shattered. This made Yejuju secretly shocked and said to himself, It seems that the reason why Odin can control the 9 realms is really something. Judging from the fact that the eternal spear in Loki's hands can exert a power that is not part of the light of destruction, we really cannot underestimate the God King who is about to die. Thinking about his worries, Yejuju was not slow in his hands. He transformed into ice blades again and combined them together. He rushed towards Loki without saying anything, ready to beat Loki up. Loki rushed up with red eyes. After the eternal spear danced over his head, he shot at Yejuju on the head. He turned sideways, held the knife horizontally above his head, and took the blow with a clang. He squeezed in front of Loki and hit his shoulder hard on Loki's chest. With a bang, Loki was hit in the chest by Yejuju's shoulder. He screamed in pain and staggered back. Before he could stand firm, Thor fell to the ground, stretched out his hand to support Loki, who staggered backward, looked at Yejuju and said, Yeah, although you are my friend, I will not allow you to hurt my brother. Yejuju was speechless about this brother-loving demon, and rolled his eyes fiercely behind the mask and said, Get one thing clear, I am not going to beat him, he is rushing to trouble me, okay? Get out of here, this is between me and him, you don't need to be kind. Loki stood firm, swept out with a gun, forced Thor back, and waved the gun of eternity to kill Yejuju. Thor knew that Yejuju was powerful, and was afraid that Loki would suffer, so he rushed up and wanted to stop Yejuju from hurting Loki. Okay. Yejuju looked at the two brothers speechlessly, thinking, You are going to beat me up? I am not the kind of person who will let others slaughter me and be soft-hearted. With a wave of his hand, Yejeju released the war wolf and 4 transformed wolves from space, and with a thought, the 6 mechanical dogs transformed and merged with each other. The sudden scene made Loki and Thor alert, and their forward speed slowed down. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Across the Heavens, Marvel's Mechanical Hunter. Author, Dachuan Chi. Chapter 290. The 6 mechanical dogs moved very quickly, and almost in the blink of an eye, they turned into a 15-meter-tall 3-headed mechanical giant dog. The next second, the mechanical 3-headed dog rushed towards Thor and Loki. At this moment, Yejeju really saw the data of the mechanical 3-headed dog. Mechanical 3-headed dog, to be named, led by War Wolf, assisted by 4 wolf packs. Size, 15 meters. Weight, 5 tons. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward arrow dot. Speed, 300 kilometers per hour. Attack method, energy cannon, electromagnetic pulse beam, Wolverine claws, 6-tailed tail spikes. Seeing the data of the 3-headed dog, Yejeju couldn't help but feel happy. Thinking of the 2-headed dragon in the space, Yejeju couldn't wait to release the red and blue clothes and 3 liquid transformation robots from the space. As soon as the 5 robots appeared, Yejeju ordered them to transform and merge. The next moment, the 5 robots rushed towards each other, and with a sound of clicking and clicking, they transformed into 2-headed dragons, flying in the air and rushing towards Thor and Loki. Yejeju looked at the 2-headed dragon carefully, and the data appeared in front of him. Mechanical 2-headed dragon, to be named, led by red and blue, assisted by 3 liquid robots. Body size, 10 meters. Weight, 5 tons. Attack method, energy attack, fire, electromagnetic pulse beam, physical attack, biting, grabbing, tail stab, auxiliary attack, a total of 4 machine guns on the wings. Flight status, 340 meters/second. Satisfied, really satisfied. Yejeju was very happy, but he was thinking about what name to give them. Although the 2-headed dragon does not look as huge and powerful as the 3-headed dragon in Transformers, it is not much different. Let's just take the name of the evil dragon Tiamat in mythology. Thinking of this, Yejeju used his mind to communicate with the system and named the 2-headed dragon Tiamat. The mechanical 3-headed dog was easy to deal with. Since it was a 3-headed form, he might as well use the legendary Cerberus, the guardian of Hell and the 3-headed dog of Hell. So, the names of Yejeju's 2 combined Kongs were decided. At this moment, the 2 combined Kongs had stopped Thor and Loki respectively. It was not until the 2 sides fought that Yejeju realized that the fighting power of the so-called gods should not be underestimated. According to the setting of the Marvel Universe, the so-called gods are humans whose body density is hundreds of times higher than that of humans on Earth. As the best among them, the physical strength of Thor and Loki can be imagined. Although the 2 combined Kongs attacked swiftly, it was difficult for them to attack the 2. Even if they occasionally attacked the 2, they could not tear their bodies apart or hurt them at all. Even the 2 combined Kongs were beaten back by Thor with Mjolnir from time to time. If the bodies of the 2 Kongs had not been able to liquefy, they might have been torn apart by Thor. Seeing the 2 combined Kongs being beaten by Thor from time to time, Yejeju also gave up the idea of releasing the steel cable. The steel cable is not like the combined Kong that can liquefy. Even if he can take the steel cable back into space at any time and repair it at any time, he dare not let the steel cable be torn into parts by Thor. Didn't you see Thor's excited shouts from time to time, and his attacks are getting heavier and heavier? Fortunately, although the 2 combined Kongs can't hurt the 2, their energy attacks can still threaten the 2. Even if Loki launches the beam attack of the Eternal Spear and Thor also launches a thunder attack, it only leaves horrible wounds on the bodies of the 2 combined Kongs, and they will recover as before the next moment. Obviously, neither side can do anything to the other. During the fight, Loki suddenly disappeared, and the next second, he left a figure in the same place. He let the three-headed dog bite through the figure, but it was empty. Yejuju also felt that there was a sense of danger around him, and he waved his hand without hesitation and slashed at the source of danger. With a sound of clang, Loki's figure emerged from the air, and the eternal spear blocked Yejuju's slash. Then, Loki smiled at Yejuju strangely, and after the figure blurred, countless Lokis holding the eternal spear laughed at Yejuju strangely. Surrounding Yejuju, countless Lokis' laughter came into Yejuju's ears. Yejuju was unmoved, and his mind was highly concentrated to perceive the surroundings. Finally, he found Loki's true body, freed one hand to condense an ice arrow, and shook his hand to shoot at the location of Loki's true body. "How could you know where I am?" Obviously, he forgot that on Earth, Yejuju could have found the location of his true body a long time ago. Loki's real body flashed and disappeared, avoiding the attack of the ice arrow. Then countless Loki raised the eternal spear in their hands and fired a beam of light at Yejuju. In an instant, the light around Yejuju became brighter. If it were someone else, how could they tell which attack was real? Yejuju remained unmoved. After concentrating on sensing the position of Loki's real body, he blocked the real beam attack with a knife. This time, Loki was blinded. His most powerful reliance was not a threat to Yejuju at all. He even felt that if this continued, not to mention Yejuju's powerful three-headed mechanical dog, even if Yejuju did it himself, he would be in trouble. In this case, let alone seeking revenge on Yejuju, he would be lucky if he was not seriously injured or even died in Yejuju's hands. Yejuju did not give him time to think so much. Sensing the location of Loki's real body, Yejuju's armor thrusters suddenly burst out and rushed towards Loki's real body at an unparalleled speed. "Ah!" Loki screamed in fear. When he wanted to dodge, it was too late. His shoulder was cut by Yejuju. Although this knife did not cut Loki's skin, it left a thin layer of frost on Loki's body. This layer of frost naturally could not hurt Loki. After all, Loki had the blood of the ice giant in his body and was not afraid of freezing damage. But after all, Yejuju had really threatened Loki. Maybe Yejuju still had some means that he had not used, and he could really kill him. At this moment, a figure appeared between the two. This figure was quite tall, with grayish-white hair scattered on his head like Thor. One of his eyes was blind, and he wore a dark eye patch. His face was full of wrinkles, and it was obvious that he was really old. Like Thor, he was wearing a black armor with a shining light, and a red cape behind him. Who else could it be but the sleeping Odin? Odin faced Yejuju and stared at him deeply for a while, until Yejuju was frightened, and then he said, "Okay, young Midgard, can you take back your pets?" Hearing this, Yejuju smiled awkwardly and said, "Okay, I'll take them back now." Across the Heavens, Marvel's Mechanical Hunter. Author, Dachuan. Chapter 291. After saying that, he said to the two combined King Kongs who were still fighting with Thor behind him, "Tiamat, Cerberus, come back." "Oh, you really dare to give names, aren't you afraid that the two real beings will come to trouble you?" Hearing Yejuju calling the names of the two mechanical creatures, Odin asked jokingly. "Haha. Isn't it just a name? Don't take it too seriously." "Haha." Yejuju replied perfunctorily with a laugh. He couldn't help feeling a little guilty, and was really afraid that the two beings would come to trouble him. While talking, the two combined King Kongs returned to Yejuju, and automatically disintegrated into 5 robots and 6 mechanical dogs, and the next moment they were collected into space one by Yejuju. During this time, Odin watched Yejuju's operation with great interest. Thor also walked up to Odin and shouted to him, "Father!" Loki stood behind Odin, holding the Spear of Eternity tightly with both hands, but still did not dare to act rashly and shouted weakly, "Father!" Odin did not respond to his two sons until Yejuju took back all the mechanical creatures. Then he said, "Young man, I invited you to Asgard as a guest, not to let you bully my two sons." "Haha, what? How could I bully your two sons? Aren't they so powerful?" Yejuju continued to laugh and continued to feel guilty. After all, it was a fact that he did it himself. Although he had not really bullied the two, he did it. Thor was obviously unconvinced and said loudly, "Father, I am a good fighter. Those two mechanical creatures can't beat me." Odin glared at Thor and said reproachfully, "I've told you before, don't look down on anyone, but you just won't listen. It seems that this lesson still can't grind away your proud temper." "Father." Thor was about to continue arguing, but was interrupted by Odin's annoying wave of his hand. Odin turned around, looked at Loki with a changeable face, and said with sadness on his cheeks, "Loki, don't you know you did something wrong?" Loki's eyes immediately turned red again, and mist suddenly surged in his eyes. He almost shed tears and stubbornly argued, "No, I am not wrong. I just want to prove to you that I am better than Thor. Hey! Do you think I really can't destroy the Jotun giant kingdom, or even the dark elves Alfheim?" Odin shook his head and sighed and continued, "Peace in the Nine Realms is the most important. No, Father, you have never cared about me. How am I inferior to Thor?" Loki was completely crazy. After shouting at Odin, he dropped the eternal spear with a clang and turned to run to the end of the bridge. Thor saw Loki running away, and immediately became anxious and shouted loudly behind him, "Loki!" After shouting, when he was about to catch up, he was stopped by Odin and said, "Wait until he thinks it through." After saying that, Odin glanced at the ice giants who were still attacking the castle, his eyes turned cold, stretched out his hand and summoned the eternal spear on the ground, and said to Thor, "Go and drive them out of the Rainbow Bridge, let our guests see the strength of our Asgard." Thor was refreshed when he heard this, and he said loudly, "Yes, Father," and rushed behind the ice giant. Yejuju curled his lips behind the mask, disdaining Odin's display of strength in front of him, but he didn't dare to express it. After all, Odin's aura should not be underestimated. He knew that he couldn't beat this old man now. But he thought, if Loki ran away, where would he run to? He didn't expect that Loki's escape would lead to contact with Thanos in advance, and he got the Mind Stone from Thanos in advance. After Thor killed the ice giants and drove them out of Asgard, Odin invited Yejuju back to his castle. Yejuju also received a prompt from the system to complete the task. Congratulations to the host for completing the follow-up task of Odin's favor. Go to Asgard and help the Protoss defeat the Ice Clan, and you will be rewarded with 10,000 experience points and an upgrade of the Falcon armor once. Although he got a chance to upgrade the armor once, he didn't have the materials. The materials he needed were in Odin's hands, which were the URU metal used by Asgard. So, even though Yejuju didn't want to play games with Odin, he had to follow Odin into the castle. In the huge restaurant of the castle, all the Asgardians who participated in the battle sat around a long table, and Thor squeezed at the table of the three warriors of the heavenly palace, laughing and drinking with them. Yejuju was specially arranged by Odin to sit below him, accepting the congratulations of his subjects while talking loudly to them. Yejuju felt like an outsider and could not fit into the warm atmosphere at all. In fact, he was an outsider, wasn't he? After the banquet was over, Odin and Thor entertained Yejuju alone. Only then did Yejuju have the opportunity to say directly, "Your Majesty, God King Odin, you took the initiative to invite me here. Can you fulfill your promise now?" "Haha, I thought you would hold back and not say it." Odin laughed happily, only Thor was a little confused, looking at his father, and then at Yejuju's confused face. Yejuju curled his lips helplessly, but did not dare to call Odin an old man. After laughing, Odin said to Thor beside him with a smile. Thor, I promised this kid to give him some URU metal. You can take him to my treasure house to get it? I was tired, so I went back to rest. After taking it, give it to him on my behalf. After saying that, Odin glanced at Yejuju thoughtfully and strode out. This glance made Yejuju feel very nervous, as if he felt that he had been deceived by Odin. Thor didn't react until then. With a happy and complaining expression on his face, he put his arm around Yejuju's shoulders and said, Hey, I thought why you came here? Isn't it just a little Ulu metal? Although we don't produce much here, it can satisfy you. There is no need to tell my father, I can give it to you too. Yejuju rolled his eyes and said angrily. Didn't your father take the initiative to contact me and ask me to come up? Otherwise, why wouldn't I ask you for it? Having said that, Yejuju still thinks that this kind of thunder god is very interesting and suits his taste. Thor really regarded Yejuju as a friend and went to the Earth for a trip. Although he had seen the despicable and greedy side of the Earth people, it was also because Jane had a different kind of affection for the Earth people. Not to mention, Yejuju helped him twice, so he naturally preferred to associate with Yejuju. The two of them chatted and laughed as they came to Odin's treasury. Guarding outside the treasury was the destroyer who had been repaired by Odin.